So, a quick review of the overall play that pulls us to this last thing that I want you to focus on. So I need you to think of the story in your head, think about Macbeth a little bit, get the ideas rolling around in your head. What has happened that leads us to the climactic ending of this play? Well, to put it really short, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth commit a series of heinous crimes, murders, betrayals, which leads to their inevitable insanity because it conflicts with their conscience. And I've wanted you to really think about that idea of how that conflict with their conscience drives them to insanity. Lady Macbeth takes her life. Macbeth is clearly like, it's all over. He's watching, people leave. He knows an army's coming to attack him. His wife has committed suicide. He has no family. He's got no friends. He's got nothing. And so when he confronts Macduff, remember Macbeth slaughtered his whole family. So Macduff just wants to kill the dude. So when they confront one another, Macduff lets Macbeth know that he wasn't born from a woman. It was a C-section. And thus Macbeth faces a choice. His choice is to surrender and be locked in jail and made fun of and pledge fealty to Malcolm, or to die because he knows he's going to die. So Macbeth chooses suicide. He chooses death instead of surrender. And I brought up that idea of pridefulness at this point, that it would be more difficult for him to endure the shame of public ridicule, and the shame of having to do what somebody else tells him to do. He would prefer death. So he takes that death. So first, the long enough. And if you check this out on the link, if you click on the link that's blue, takes you to this document. There's also a link to the Patrick Stewart performance. And I'm going to play this performance for you. Let me change out my... speaker. And so I'm going to play the performance here on my screen. Let's turn it up so you guys can hear it. But I want to kind of explain it first. You guys have these slides to do. So here we go. Boom. I'm going to use the slides. So first, this is the first one, long enough. And I asked this question, so think about this. Explain the symbolic, and in parentheses I put figurative, meaning of the falling leaves. So symbolic, figurative, they're kind of interchangeable. So remember, think literal. So literal falling leaves would be, looking out at the trees and seeing the leaves fall. But if we use that imagery of the falling leaves, if we use the whole context of fall and the seasonal changes, it takes on a different meaning when we apply that to other ideas. And that's called figuratively speaking. And that refers to a symbolism that's more universal. So in his little soliloquy, he makes a reference to falling leaves, and I want you to think about that when you look at this particular passage. That's all you have to focus on. And I will kind of explain what is going on. So I put those images so you can think about it. So he says, I have lived long enough. My way of life has fallen into the sere, the yellow leaf. So fall, sere, yellow leaf. And so what is happening in the fall? What is happening with a leaf that has turned yellow? Well, at one time it was green and producing chlorophyll and helping the tree thrive. But as the tree goes dormant, aka dies for the winter, it sheds these leaves, which then fall to the ground and decompose into the soil. So he makes this reference to this is the stage that he is at right now. And it's referencing not only his age, because he isn't particularly old, but his life as a king is already fallen. His way of life, his royal, hour upon the stage is now this falling leaf. And that which should accompany old age. So, all those things that when you're old you hope to have, like honor, love, obedience, troops of friends, I must not look to have. Which is saying basically, nobody honors me, nobody loves me, I have no friends, nobody does what I say. But in their stead, curses, that freaking troop up. Not loud, meaning they can't say them out loud to his face, right? But deep, meaning it's everywhere. And the people that obey him or say nice things about him are called mouth honor. We love you, Macbeth. You're you're the best king there ever was. You're awesome. What a breath. So the words have no meaning. They're just breath. Okay? And so he's in this kind of depressed moment that I want you to see. That he has come to the realization that all of these things that he should have right now, that he does not have those. And so he's kind of over it. Just like Lady Macbeth. Macbeth is like, I'm done. I'm over with this. So thinking about that, the next one is I want you to think about Macbeth's choice. So choice is the key thing here. It's one of the themes of this whole play is, could Macbeth make a choice? I mean, did he have any choices? Was this fated or destined? Was it inescapable? And can we hold him morally responsible for his actions if he was truly caught up in that causal chain? I like to point out here at the end, by the way, think about Lady Macbeth. And just think for a minute. Lady Macbeth, she didn't kill anybody. She didn't hurt anybody. As a matter of fact, after she planned that first killing of the king, she didn't do anything else. She didn't know about Banquo. She didn't know about Macduff. She didn't go to the witch's cave. She didn't do anything. She was trying to take care of Macbeth, who was losing his stuff. And she cannot deal with her own conscience from that simple act of encouraging her husband to use what her husband already does use, violence, in order to gain power. So at this point, Macbeth has had to come to some strong realizations of his own. And what he realizes here in this is that Macduff is going to kill him. The lay on Macduff and damned be him that first cries, hold enough. Him that first cries, hold enough. First cries, hold enough. Hold it! That's enough! That's enough. Stop it. Ooh, I give. There is none of that. So if we're in a sword fight and there's no crying, hold enough, there's no tapping out, that means death. And because Macbeth knows that Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped, this is Macbeth saying, just kill me. Okay, just kill me. Now, thinking of all this as, oh, that's so depressing, leads me, so again, that's his choice. So I want you to think about that and write a little bit about that he makes this choice. He could have chosen to surrender. So he chooses this other thing. And even though the witches, the apparitions, the riddle said, beware Macduff, like beware Macduff, what does that mean? Like, that doesn't say Macduff is going to kill you and chop your head off. So how Macbeth interprets that, how he responds to it, he makes that choice to force Macduff to kill him. And I think, Macduff would have killed him, no problem, but to think about that, he offered surrender. The last part, the last question, is what I want to leave with the play today. And the play is bookend, on both sides. It starts with and it ends with violence. And it doesn't only have violence, it has Macbeth participating in something that results in a severed head. So think about the beginning of the play, right? Scotland is in this long-term war with who knows, just from the Scottish point of view, there's some enemy. And Macbeth rallies the troops and he personally kills tons of soldiers until he confronts the leader of the enemy forces, and then sticks him in the stomach, slits him up the belly, guts him, and then chops his head off and puts his head on the end of a pole and then waves the pole to signal victory. That is the act that gave Macbeth hero status, right? Hero status. Now, thinking about that imagery, it's pretty bloody, it's pretty gory, it's a kind of a gross image. But we end with the same thing. We end with the same image. And that image is of that severed head. It's the classic of Macbeth, but it's there for a purpose. One of the early images, one of the ending images. We have Lady Macbeth and Macbeth becoming darkly insane and taking their own lives. That's acts of violence on themselves. We have the acts of violence at the beginning and the end. We have the symbolism of the severed head. Why is the severed head so important? It's in religion, it's in mythology, it's in literature, it's in pop culture. Why the severed head? Well, think about this, that you could sever almost any other limb. You can even take organs out of me and I'm still okay. I mean, I can still live, right? But when you chop that head off, there's like no doubt about it, they're dead. And so that concept of the finality of life, and that he becomes nothing more than this emblem of evil, this icon of evil, is kind of, hypocritical. Because the other guy that had his head chopped off, he had also been vilified and considered evil. So when Macbeth chopped his head off, Macbeth wasn't evil. But now Macduff chops this guy's head off, so now Macduff is the hero. And now Malcolm's the king who will order armies to go and do war with other armies that will chop off other people's heads and then claim that they're the good guy and they're the bad guy. Now, is Macbeth a bad guy for what he did? Well, I think that's a pretty clear theme that's not being questioned. We know that Macbeth clearly steers the compass in the wrong direction, and he clearly knows it and suffers from the guilty conscience that is the consequences. But the point of the play, amongst many points, is that this is not unique to Macbeth. This is not something that came out of nowhere. Macbeth is a product of this violent patriarchal system in which war, aggression, violence, fear are some of the primary tools of leadership. And Macbeth stands as a play in which Shakespeare shows us that in this world of aggression and war and violence, really nobody's happy, nobody's grooving. There's a lot of pridefulness and stuff, but it doesn't seem to be the way. And because the main storyline, when we see female characters, the Weird Sisters, Lady Macbeth, Lady Macduff, those are our only female characters in this almost all male play. They are cast as either evil or naive, and these kind of characteristics that are shown here are basically that idea that this is a very male world. And even though the women are players in it, it's their influence. Like, think about, what did the Weird Sisters do? Nothing. They just said you could be king, right? They didn't say go kill everybody and betray them and be a jerk. Although Lady Macbeth encourages him to take the king's life, because her rationale, her thinking is that Macbeth is a soldier and the king himself is in power because he sends soldiers to kill other kings. That's what he does. So if you kill the king, what's the difference, right? But then she figures out there is a big difference because it's your king. But all these complex acts of violence and people trying to sort through them are what create this ending. Which is, Macbeth has no friends, goes crazy, loses his wife, and then ends up everybody cheering and partying in the hallways because Macbeth is dead. But hey, let's play some soccer with Macbeth's head. It's not really. You don't want to have a life in which your death and your severed head becomes a cause for celebration. So that's the severed head. That's the last part that I want you to think about. Thinking about why would they put this imagery in the beginning and the end. What does this whole play say about violence and aggression, and where it leads them. I am going to show you Patrick Stewart.
Lived long enough. My way of life is fallen into the sear, the yellow leaf. And that which should accompany old age as honor, love, obedience, troops of friends, I must not look to have, but in their stead, curses, not loud, but deep. Mouth honor, breath.
So I simply end with that, with the play, thinking of that's where his choices lead him. And it's a clear cautionary tale, don't do like Macbeth, because you'll end up like him, hating life and, preferring death. So we have that, but I want you to see, I've tried to stress the larger violence with the blood imagery and the acts of violence that dominate the narrative. And that, what do we learn from these in terms of our conscience and our ability to do violence, depending on what the context is. Thinking about all that. The audio slide deck. And what time is it? Yes, so I'm gonna finish up. The audio slide deck. So these are the last two of the slide deck that are set up, and I need to make a couple of announcements, and when I post later, I'm going to post up another tutorial, and I'm going to link it in here. So for those of you looking for more guidance, I'm going to address some of these. So first things first, please, everybody who's been doing this, everybody who plans to do it, hear these three things. First, share your audio files. So like if you created an audio file and you turned it in, or you linked it, or you inserted it, however it is that you gave that audio file to me, make sure that it is shared. Allow anyone with the link to view it. Okay, so anyone with the link, I recommend creating a folder and put it in, sharing the folder. Anyone with the link can view, and putting all the files in it. But make sure that when you turn it in to me that I can listen to it, because I want to value your reading. Okay, so if I can't hear it, now you may have received your paper back with full credit and me asking for permission. I gave you the benefit of the doubt, but please go and share it with me, and let me know so that I can actually hear it, so that when we work on the final project next week, you'll have all of those files shared. So that's first, give me permission to share it. Number two, if you're trying to insert your audio and you can't, it's because you have recorded it in M4A format, which is kind of the default format of your phones. So if you use like an iPhone and you use voice notes or some of these other things, it records in an M4A format. You can see it on your drive, you can listen to it on your drive, but unfortunately Google Slide does not recognize it, so you can't find it. So you have two choices. First, those M4A files you've already created, you have to convert them. You can do that through a browser-based conversion like Cloud Convert. If you're on Chromebook, most of them are blocked. So again, use the browser on your phone and convert them, because your phone has your own account. You can convert the files to MP3 and insert them. So right now, don't worry about all of those files that you have in M4A, but know that when I give you the final project assignment, your files have to be inserted in MP3 format. And I'm going to make that a requirement, although I know it's tech, it's not English. I want to encourage you to solve that part. So let me do it again. First, share the files with me, anyone with the link. 2, record in MP3. iPhone, you go to the Apple Store and look for MP3 Recorder. It's an app, it records in MP3. Android, there are a number of recorders that will allow you to select. I think I have Voice Recorder Pro, allows me to select the type of file output. And we're going to be continuing to use this. We'll be using this in the spring semester. So figuring that out, you can use your phone to record it in MP3. You can use your phone to convert it so that next week when we do the final project, you'll have that. So MP3. Third thing, and there are only 3, publish to the web. Publish to the web. I have it in red. Publish to the red. When I say give me a link, I want it to your online presentation, not to your Google slide file. And it's an online, just like my example. And you want to get fancy schmancy, I want you to create a hyperlink, meaning I don't want you to just paste the address down here. And what do I mean by that? Let me show you. I'll do it right here so you can see what I'm talking about. I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to select this and turn it into a link. Okay, what do I want you to do? I want you to put that link inside text. So I want you to select the text and then paste the link so that I can click on this to go to your online presentation. Okay, that's your goal. Now, a lot of you are not doing that. I'm not marking you down. I'm going to keep encouraging you. Some of you, I went and did it for you and put the link in there so you could see what I'm asking. So those are the 3 things, tech side of this, that this ability to create this presentation that has this look to it with your slides and with your audio, you can use this skill in all your classes. So figure out how to do this slick part for the project so that when you finish, so share it with me, MP3 conversion or recording, published to the web. Okay, and that's for those of you who've been doing awesome things. Those are just 3 tech tips, and I'm going to put that up later.